All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2026 Lake Coast season. So, we're starting off here with our Lake Coast program local administration training. I'm Hannah, so if I'm a new face, I am the program coordinator for the Lake Coast program. And this is my second year overseeing the Lake Coast program, so I'm excited to see it continue to evolve and learn more about it. A little bit about me before I dive in. I live in Epsom, New Hampshire with my husband, our two cats, our dog Echo. Echo is a 5-year-old lab mix. I wish that she loved swimming. She dips her toes in, but she won't jump off of a dock quite yet. Uh, and so we moved from Saratoga, New York, about a year and a half ago. And while we were living there, I had overseen a boat steward program, which is very similar to overseeing the Lake Coast program. And I'm hoping that that experience, as well as my experiences with surveying and management of aquatic invasive species, can kind of bring some support to local programs and that we have a great season ahead. So this season, I guess lastly, what I'm most excited for is getting out, visiting more of our lake coasts and seeing more of our New Hampshire lakes. And I intend to bring my kayak with me, and I promise to clean, drain, and dry between all of the water bodies. Okay, here we go. So as always, this training accompanies the Lake Coast Program training manual. So a lot of the materials that I talk about today can be found in the training manual are on our Lake Coast Program website. And a brief presentation agenda will go over the importance of the program down to recruitment materials, the Survey 123 field app, and scheduling and pay. Thank you to Trevor here, who was willing to pose in a little photo op with me, and this photo has been used in many places. Okay, so our successes. This is probably one of my favorite slides that we have. Um, So of course, read the bullets on this slide. My personal favorite section of this accomplishments page is the invasive species removed. New to this year's accomplishments page that you're looking at right now is the Hydrilla slash Brazilian waterweed species, and that was found in 2025 by one of our lake coasts. And that is a really aggressive aquatic plant that we haven't detected before. So I was really excited to see that pop up on this page. So in 2025, we had just about 74,000, a little over 74,000 boaters committed to clean, drain, dry practices, which is fantastic. So this was a new metric that we started collecting last season. So you may remember on the survey that lake hosts were asking boaters, will you clean, drain, and dry even when a lake host is not present? So this gauges kind of the risk for lakes that are not covered by lake coasts, and that boaters are kind of in a way pledging to use these practices outside of the program. And in 2025, we had 5 lakes in our program that had aquatic invasive species or AIS saves. We had Beaver Lake with a Chinese mystery snail save, Granite Lake with that Hydrilla or Brazilian Alodia, Lake Winnisquam with zebra mussel, Pawtuckaway Lake with variable milfoil, and Spofford Lake had quite a few saves with 2 fanworts, a variable milfoil, as well as an unknown non-native milfoil. And we are home to some of the cleanest and healthiest lakes and ponds in the country, which is an amazing title to have. And a healthy lake protects your enjoyment of the lake, the tourism industry, as well as the local economy. Of course, with clean lakes, it takes work to keep them that way, and they are threatened. So, what we focus on in the Lake Coast program is the threat from aquatic invasive species. And it's really, anything that's coming into contact with the lake that has not been clean, drained, and dried poses the risk of transporting invasive plants and animals between water bodies. So, thinking about the issues that invasive species cause, you might have milfoil, which a lot of you might be familiar with, that tangles around boaters, that affects aquatic species habitats, that makes it not enjoyable to swim off of your docks. Or you have spiny water flea, an invasive animal, and that severely impacts fish populations and may reduce people wanting to fish on the lake and the native fish that you have. So on this slide, we have two photos. The first is a zebra mussel that was found on Lake Winnisquam. So this photo was taken on our laminated photo submission form for suspicious specimens. This species is a zebra mussel, and it's that lower kind of D-shaped mussel. It's pretty small. Each of those columns is an inch long, so kind of for size reference. And it has an alternating kind of black and white pattern like a zebra would have. This was found on Winnisquam, so that's one of our saves. And then also at Spofford Lake with that right-hand image, we have a fanwort species, and we were able to get this species live in person. So we took this photo in office, and we were able to, spread out the leaflets. So this type of photo of the fanwort is what we would love to see from lake hosts when they're submitting photos of suspicious specimens. So aquatic invasive species can cost homeowners up to 20% by reducing shoreline property values. They're expensive to control, difficult to remove. Dense vegetation tangles in the motor like you see in this photo. So really the most cost-effective management strategy for aquatic invasive species is to prevent their introduction in the first place, and that's where the Lake Coast program comes in. So the bullets listed on this slide are some of the funding talking points that you could bring to your local funding sources, such as a municipality, town. So we do have more funding talking points on the back end of the training manual as well for your reference. Our infested water bodies in New Hampshire as we move along here in our training. So this map was updated by the Department of Environmental Services in 2025 with one very important update. So last season, spiny water flea was found in Newfound Lake, and I'll go over a little bit about spiny water flea in more detail in a minute, but that brings the total number of lakes having spiny water flea, as having spiny water flea in New Hampshire, to 3. So Newfound Lake, it was first detected last season. Winnipesaukee, it was first detected in 2023. And Lake Winnisquam first detected it in 2023 as well. So we are striving to prevent its further spread, and the Lake Coast program plays a humongous role in that. So, what are some of New Hampshire's aquatic invasive species laws? And I encourage you to try and answer this question on your own, and see if you're familiar. Uh, it's always good to kind of brush up at the beginning of the season. So, as a recap, all recreational boaters must clean off all mud, plants, animals, and debris from their boat, trailer, and equipment. They must drain motors, bilges, live wells, ballast tanks, storage compartments, and gear. And they must open and remove all drain plugs and drain all compartments and gear where runoff will not flow back into the water body before they leave the ramp. And they are required to leave it open while trailering, which means, driving down the road. And boaters by law must use available tools that access sites on boats, trailers, and gear to prevent the spread of invasive species. So, what might some of those available tools be? New Hampshire Lakes has what's called a CD3 unit, which is a waterless, cleaning station. And we offer it to a very select few lakes during the season, usually busier lakes, because it is some work to trailer it in between sites, but it's a great prevention tool and educational tool for ramp locations. So not everyone knows about these laws, and that's why lake hosts and coordinators, presumably you who are watching this, are so important to the health and future of our water bodies. Keep in mind that lake hosts do not enforce these laws, but can help to educate and make boaters aware that these laws exist. If a boater refuses an inspection during the season, lake hosts should not be recording personal information of that boater or making any phone calls. This is a completely voluntary program for boaters to participate in. So when I see this photo, I think of the zebra mussel save from, I think it was Winnisquam, and I think that she is looking in the type of area where that zebra mussel was found. So super thorough inspection. I'm so proud of that lake host. Um, so really through public education and prevention through these boater inspections, this program benefits not only all of New Hampshire's lakes, but beyond as well. So in 2025, we had about 1,200 boaters who were next launching in water bodies out of state, and close to 21,000 boaters who indicated that they were next launching within New Hampshire's lakes. So, um, that's really telling on how we're impacting both in-state and out-of-state water bodies. And since the program's inception, I think it was about 24 years ago, lake hosts have prevented the spread and introduction of 1,680 invasive species. So incredible. And lake hosts should be reminded, even if they are returning, that they are inspected to both inspect both launching and retrieving watercraft. Um, and report every single plant and animal, plant fragment that they find during boater inspections. Um, so even if that plant is known to already be in the water body, or even if that lake host finds it during every single inspection, it should be reported to New Hampshire Lakes through the boater survey. And lastly, before I move on from this slide, it's also really helpful to remind lake hosts in season that these inspections are 100% voluntary. Our 2026 Lake Coast programs. So this season we have 75 groups spread throughout New Hampshire. So this wide reach with our Lake Coast programs helps to ensure that boaters moving throughout the state receive consistent educational messaging and can recognize that blue Lake Coast t-shirt and sandwich board as they move throughout the state. And this is why I had asked in the payroll award application for your ramp address. This map is provided in the Lake Host application. So if a Lake Host indicates interest in your group, they may fill out the inquiry form. This is accessible there as well as on the volunteer inquiry form for Lake Hosts. How lake hosts protect your lakes. Essentially, these three bullets sum it up. They are the first face that boaters see when they visit the launches. They protect the lakes in multiple ways by providing free voluntary inspections to catch suspicious specimens. Those suspicious specimen photos are submitted to New Hampshire Lakes, allowing for their review and for us to let the Lake Association or Lake Coast Program Group know that potentially entered their water body. Um, they collect boater data to inform New Hampshire Lakes more information on these saves and help to define boater traffic around the greater New England area. Um, and potentially, and most importantly, they educate the public on the importance of clean, drain, dry, and aquatic invasive species prevention, really hopefully reducing the number of times a lake coast save is needed. And between inspections, so I know that there's a lot of downtime at the ramp. I was a boat steward in New York at one time, which is basically the Lake Coast role, and I read a lot of books. But what I also did, and what I found really useful, was to look in the water around the ramp during that downtime for potential infestations. So boat ramps can be a good place to check for infestations. They're usually where boats carrying these species are first put into the water and where those species initially take hold. Our main messaging of the Lake Host program is to clean, drain, and dry. These are this is the core language around clean, drain, dry on this slide. Um, Lake hosts can answer questions from boners on these practices and how to prevent the spread of AIS. Again, inspections are voluntary, although we found the majority of boaters are receptive to this messaging and really want to help to protect our lakes. A little lemon seltzer. So, spiny water flea. So, we are making a significant push this season to prevent the spread of spiny water flea. It's in three of our water bodies now, and we don't want to see it continue to spread. So New Hampshire Lakes has had meetings with, state, local nonprofit, university folks, and all kind of banding together to work together to prevent the spread of this species. New Hampshire Lakes has updated our rack card that lake hosts hand out to boaters. So that's that right-hand image. It's more in line with our branding. It provides a bit more information on the species. That QR code in the bottom right-hand corner takes you to a spiny waterflea blog with even more information. So you can pick some of those up at our self-service station in Concord. Okay, so we're moving along here, and we're going to be talking about getting your group involved. And thank you to Level Lake for posing for this really great photo. I was able to visit Level Lake last season. So, who do you need on your Lake Host leadership team? In a volunteer-only program, you will need a Lake Host coordinator and a group leader. If you are a lake host program with paid lake hosts, you will also need a group treasurer to be on board in addition to the coordinator and leader role. So you'll also, in a paid lake host program, need the support of additional funding, and we'll get into potential funding sources in a little bit. So for the coordinator role, key responsibilities. So really a well-functioning and professional, effective Lake Coast program requires a hardworking management team behind it. So each organization accepted to participate in the Lake Host program must provide one or two local program coordinators to supervise the group's employees and volunteers and ensure that the group fills all program requirements. The local coordinator position is an unpaid volunteer position. It requires a time commitment of approximately 5 hours per week during the duration of the program. A coordinator's time spent during the season can be counted towards your group's volunteer match. Um, the coordinator is really the point of contact for New Hampshire Lakes. They set the schedule and approve time cards. Visiting the ramp regularly, making sure that lake hosts are safe, that they have all the program materials that they need, and kind of uh, in line with the group treasurer and leader, the coordinator is assisting to make sure that your group is operating within the terms of participation, or as I like to call them, the TOPS. Typically for larger groups, and if you don't have a co-coordinator to assist, a local manager can help. So not all groups have a local program manager role, but some groups opt to designate a paid lake host manager slash assistant to either cover these roles when a volunteer is not available or help in data entry. Um, Groups with a lake host program assistant slash manager are typically larger groups or groups with multiple launches. So this is a paid position, and the manager can do any combination of collecting paperwork, entering data, communicating with lake hosts, signing off on time cards, or additional responsibilities as approved by New Hampshire Lakes. All right, our terms of participation, our tops, were revised in the winter of 2025, and you all at this point will have reviewed them when submitting your payroll award application or completing the volunteer information form if you're a volunteer-only program. So your group leadership needs to agree to the terms of participation in order to be involved with the Lake Coast program. Um, in summary, and this is not all of the terms, but if you agree, then you are upholding local leadership positions, upholding an inspection schedule to spend out the payroll award amount provided by New Hampshire Lakes, recruiting lake hosts, verifying timesheets for any paid lake hosts, and maintaining data collection of boat inspections and volunteer match. Excuse me. And ensuring that your partner group as an organization will support New Hampshire Lakes at the minimum $300 annual partner level. And that $300 will count towards your program's local match. And these are found in your training manual as well as the coordinator resources page. Okay. So I've mentioned volunteer match a couple of times. So Lake Host participating groups are required to match their grant award dollar for dollar. And this can be done through actual cash to extend paid lake host hours beyond the payroll award. It can also be done through in-kind donations of time by volunteer lake hosts, or a combination of both. Really, whatever works for your program. We're flexible. And your group is responsible for covering the cost of paying your paid lake hosts. You cannot cover any payroll expense with the value of volunteer hours, as the value of their time does not create actual funds. The volunteer time amount on what it's currently valued at is listed in your volunteer match sheet. It can update mid-season, usually in the upwards trend. So we keep that updated as it changes. So groups should enter your volunteer hours weekly into your volunteer match spreadsheet, which can be found on the coordinator resources page. This year in 2026, please, if you already have it bookmarked on your web browser, visit the coordinator resources page and re-bookmark it, as the link that you have is probably expired going into this season and will not work. Um, be sure to kind of itemize that volunteer time that you are entering. We, don't really want to receive a bulk entry at the end of the season that lists, 40 hours for X Lake Coast throughout the entire 2026 season. We like to see it a little bit more itemized. And if it's not recorded, we have no way of knowing that you conducted volunteer match. So try to record that and record any specialty item purchases such as sweatshirts or tank tops. And new to this season, we have sweatpants on our specialty items page. So you should grab some of those if you can. Our coordinator resources page. This is what it looks like. We have two tabs. We have a funding tab and hiring recruiting. On our funding tab, which is viewable here, You can see a bunch of different hyperlinked resources. The bottom one, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see my mouse on the screen record, but it says list of volunteer match spreadsheets for digital entry. You'll want to go ahead and click that. A list like this will come up. You can scroll down to your group, click on that link that's joined by the group name, and re-bookmark that for your use during the season. And when you open up your volunteer match sheet, it will look like this, and you can kind of explore that and see how it is entering that data. For volunteer match, groups are required to contribute a minimum of 100% local match towards the payroll award and maintain proper documentation. So that means that itemized reporting of volunteer time. The following counts as local match. Local funding spent on additional hours beyond what is provided through your payroll award, all volunteer time valued at the New Hampshire rate, including time spent coordinating the program by phone, email, in person, time spent driving to or from the ramp, time spent at trainings, including right now. So make sure to record that in your volunteer match sheet. Any out-of-pocket expenses for the program, if you purchase postage, chairs, ramp supplies, volunteer mileage, valued at the federal rate, then all of that counts as well. Um, yeah, if you have something and you're questioning whether or not it counts towards volunteer match, feel free to give me a call. Okay. Local program operations. This sheet is in your training manual. It provides just kind of a monthly guide on what to expect from the Lake Coast program and what responsibilities you likely have to do as a coordinator. It's really a living document. So if you notice anything that you feel should be included, reach out. Please let us know. We'd love to make updates to make this as useful to groups as possible. So steps for success. Ways to recruit Lake Hosts. This goes for both paid Lake Host programs and volunteer programs. So you can send out flyers. One of the most effective tools that I'm not sure how much it's utilized is reaching out to local colleges and tech schools. Find some professors that maybe teach a class that would have students that are interested in this type of work and see if they'd be willing to share that this is an opportunity during the season. You can also table at local job fairs, just a simple Google search to see if one is near you would be a great resource. As we get into talking about hiring, I just want to send out the reminder that no hire letter equals no ramp time. Unless hosts have received an official notice of hire for a lake host position, they are not employees of New Hampshire Lakes and they are not legally allowed to work. So working at the ramp unhired is in violation of labor laws and puts the program and your lake hosts at risk. Partnering groups do risk losing their lake host program by violating these labor laws. It also puts the entire New Hampshire Lakes program at risk for violating these laws. So team recruitment, we had talked a little bit about ways to do recruitment. The first step is really that lake hosts will complete an inquiry form. And that will email all of the information that they provide in there, like contact information, to the coordinators. And same goes for volunteer lake hosts. So if a volunteer host fills out their form, then all of that information will be sent to the local coordinator as well. The average hourly wage across lake host programs is $15.67 per hour. Hourly wages, of course, do vary group to group, and competitive wages can increase the number of applicants you receive and really incentivize lake hosts to return the following season as well. So as a reminder, returning lake hosts are awesome. It really kind of lightens the load of needing to maybe do additional training or figure out scheduling for this season. And they come in with a really strong foundational understanding of the Lake Host program. They do still need to take the Lake Host training annually for updated procedures and information. So after you have submitted your Lake Host for hire, an automated email with next steps will be sent to your Lake Host with information to complete paperwork in iSolved. So far, the Lake Host has indicated interest. You have decided, yes, that Lake Host is great. I would want to hire them. You submit them for hire to New Hampshire Lakes, and we immediately get in contact with the Lake Host to take it from there and complete their hire. Part of the hiring process is the federal I-9 form. So for this form specifically, it is completed online, and New Hampshire Lakes verifies all I-9 forms. I believe that the I-9 form needs to be completed within 3 business days of the lake host's first day of work. Otherwise, that lake host is no longer eligible to work at the ramp until the onboarding is complete. We like to see all hiring forms buttoned up and the hire completely completed before a lake host works any hours at the ramp. So for returning paid lake hosts only, New Hampshire Lakes will determine if the federal I-9 form needs to be completed. Employees will fill out the first page of the I-9 and still must provide appropriate forms of identification to complete the second page. I-9 forms must be completed online in a program called iSolved, which is our onboarding platform, or by New Hampshire Lakes staff in person. So mailed or emailed copies of I-9 forms will not be accepted. Once New Hampshire Lakes, once the employee has completed their online forms, you and the employee will be notified over email that their onboarding is complete. We are working to hire 300 seasonal employees each year. And so we will reach out to you with any progress updates as needed, or if we need your assistance with connecting with a lake host. Otherwise, please do refrain from, reaching out to us for updates. We will reach out to you as needed because we're trying our best to hire everyone by their start dates. So employees must complete their hiring process in full and be approved by New Hampshire Lakes before being able to work at the ramp. So paid lake hosts are New Hampshire Lakes employees, so we handle and maintain everything that goes with having an employee. We collect their hiring paperwork, we provide them with the hiring letter, we ensure that they're taxed properly, paid on time, sent their W-2s, manage things like workers' compensation coverage. So during the onboarding process, lake hosts will be asked to complete their onboarding online through that iSolved platform. And this includes contact and tax information, completing the I-9 form. New to this season, which I'm really excited about, is a video that hosts can use, if needed, to guide them to complete this online onboarding process. So they can pause the video and follow along to complete that online process. Lake Host program materials. So we're going to dive into what the next steps through the season will look like for our program this year. Gearing up your team. This is the outside of our offices. If you haven't visited before, this is our front door. So right through this front door and to the right, you will have a self-service station with all of our Lake Host program materials. This station is open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on weekdays. Please do your very best to give us a 24-hour notice that you will be coming to pick up materials. You can do that by giving our office a call, emailing me, emailing the Lake Host email, any way of communication. Um, Otherwise, we can't guarantee that this station will be open and fully stocked. Oops, there we go. So for uniforms, they are mandatory at all times while on duty. And this to the right is a general bundle of what Lake Host will be provided with. You'll notice the two t-shirts and a hat. So Lake Hosts can either get one t-shirt and a hat as their uniform, or if they would like to void the hat, then they can get two t-shirts. We have limited supplies that we can offer Lake Host programs, so please only take what you need so that other programs have what they need as well. And you or your lake hosts can order tank tops, long sleeves, sweatshirts, sweatpants now from the online web store available on our Lake Host materials page. And that's nhlakes.org/store. For one of the materials that you'll get for Lake Host, there is the incident and reporting card. On this card, we have our New Hampshire Lakes president's phone number, our director of programs, Bria Arvidsson's number. Please ask that Lake Hosts or yourselves only contact these phone numbers in the event of an emergency. These are personal cell phone numbers. And when or before you hand out these cards to Lake Hosts, I would suggest writing down your name and contact phone number so that hosts have that on that line, that blank line there. For our brochures and decals, these are some of the handouts that boaters will receive from Lake Hosts. Our brochure and Spiny Waterfleet handouts are getting updated this year, so they'll look a little bit different to be more in line with our branding. If you have old copies and need to hand those out, if you run out of new copies, then that's just fine. Our Lake Host Field app, which is Survey 123. So the Field app works in remote areas with no cell phone reception needed. It stores surveys on the phone until the Lake Host is able to go to an area with cell phone reception or Wi-Fi, to upload those surveys at a later time. It collects clean, mappable data for research, reduces paper waste, provides useful summary charts. It means that you're more able to easily see your progress in season on our webpage. Your data is live and updating through your programs link on our webpage. And inspections are part of what determines your payroll award going into next season. So ensuring that Lake Hosts throughout the season are uploading all their surveys, inspecting every single boat that agrees to the voluntary inspection is really important. For the Survey 123 app, you're welcome to take out your phone and scan this QR code. You may be thinking, I already have the app on my phone. In 2026, very important, please delete the existing survey from your phone. If that means deleting the app to make it a little bit easier to be able to delete the survey that's in it, feel free to do that. There are re-download instructions in the Lake Host Program Training Manual. The old survey is no longer active. We have a new one. There were some, kind of bugs with the old one that this one will not have this season. It's the same format and is just the New Hampshire Lakes Boater Survey. That's its title. So when you scan this QR code, it will take you to your web browser, likely on your phone, and it will ask you if you would like to open up in browser or in the app. If you already have the app on your phone, then you can press that. Otherwise, I would download the Survey 123 app onto your phone before scanning this QR code. Reporting suspicious specimens. These photos probably look familiar from earlier in our training here. So during the season, Please remind hosts that every finding should be submitted to New Hampshire Lakes. Regardless if hosts are using the app or paper boater surveys, every host needs their own photo submission form, which is what you see on the left-hand photo here. Photos are either submitted through the app during the boater inspection. If your group is using paper surveys, then those photos can be emailed to lakehost@nhlakes.org. Please ask that the host include some survey information with that so that we know what survey to link that photo with. Regardless if the specimen is on a launching or departing boat, it must be reported. And regardless if this specimen is already a known invasive in your water body, it also must be reported. So during the summer, there are biweekly payrolls for paid lake hosts, ongoing identifications of plants and animals that are submitted to New Hampshire Lakes, and weekly financial reports to group leadership. And those financial reports are sent to your group's treasurer. And your group treasurer should be ensuring that your group is not overspending on your payroll award or overspending on the local funding that your group has provided. So it's a great tool for your group's treasurer. For scheduling and pay, and I'd like to make a brief note to our volunteer programs who are watching this recording. So please stick around, volunteer programs, for our scheduling portion of this section. Once we reach the pay portion, that information is specific to paid Lake Host programs. So you, as a volunteer-only Lake Host program, can feel free to log off or stick around if you're curious. So our Lake Host program training, first of all, thank you for the huge amount of responses to our training surveys this year to help me select what training dates we're offering. The consensus indicated the dates that I'll be pulling up very briefly here. Remember that time spent training is time paid. Or time spent training is volunteer time and should be counted towards your local match. So for both paid and volunteer hosts, their first day should be taking the training, even if they're a returning Lake host. So this season, our Lake Host training dates, our first one is Friday, May 1st from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Our second is Tuesday, June 2nd from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. If you have a Lake Host who, for instance, is starting on Memorial Day weekend, I would encourage you to have that Lake Host, watch the recording a couple days before starting at the ramp. So you might want to set their start date as May 18th, which I believe is a Monday or a Tuesday. And that will mean that you are submitting their start date in your hire request form to New Hampshire Lakes as close to their first actual day of work as possible, which is really important for us, payroll wise. So lake hosts are only required to join for one of these trainings, certainly not all three. And yeah, it's hopefully, going to be a useful tool providing some new information each season to lake hosts. For planning your staffing schedule, if you use volunteers to stretch the coverage of your ramp beyond paid lake host hours, you can recruit volunteers. So these are some of the tools that you can use on the slide here. For planning your staffing schedule, you can look at your final activity report from last season to show your boater activity broken down by time last year. To share lake host schedules, you can use a shared Google Calendar. I find Excel really useful so that you can really break down hours and pay and figure out what's going to work for each individual lake host scheduling wise. Okay, so a really cool resource that we identified this season. So this is from New Hampshire Fish and Game, and this QR code will take you to a current list of all of the known freshwater fishing tournaments that are happening in New Hampshire's lakes. So this first screenshot shown here is just one of many pages of scheduled fishing tournaments for 2026. So if you don't have or don't anticipate uh, lake hosts working at the launch during a fishing tournament, you may want to kind of reevaluate because that could be a really good source of education for boaters, as well as preventing the spread of species such as spiny water flea. And apologies, I just realized that I misspelled schedule. Um, so I will fix that in our live training. Planning your staffing schedule. So considerations, trying to provide regularity for lake hosts. It kind of can help with security of knowing that they have a set number of hours per week. There are labor law restrictions on the number of hours and consecutive days that a 16 and 17-year-old can work in the New Hampshire Youth Employment Law. So read the parental permissions form provided in the manual very carefully. We do not hire anyone under the age of 16. If you have any potential lake hosts that you are hoping to submit for hire, they must be 16 years old when submitted. Please do not preemptively submit a soon-to-be 16-year-old for hire. Our hiring team does not know their age when you submit them, and they cannot be hired employees of New Hampshire Lakes until they're at least 16 years old. Um, they also cannot attend or view trainings or fill out paperwork preemptively. And did you know that paid lake hosts, as well as volunteer lake hosts, may work at multiple locations and lakes? So be cognizant that lake hosts cannot work more than a combined 40 hours per week. Um, and same with volunteer lake hosts in this next bullet. A hire letter is needed for every group that a lake host works with, or a volunteer form is needed to be filled out for every program that a volunteer is working with. So, for instance, if a lake host is working with Group A for the majority of the season and they work one day with Group B, they still need a hire letter for Group B, even if they're only working with them one day during the season. So inclement weather policy and payroll. So if it is lightning or hailing for some reason in the middle of summer, high winds, you can communicate with your lake hosts ideally ahead of time the night before if you plan to cancel their shift. If an employee starts a shift and it's just out of nowhere a torrential downpour and they need to leave, excuse me, yeah, so if they get rained out anytime within the first 2 hours of the employee arriving to the launch, then that employee must be paid for the first 2 hours for reporting to work, even if they technically only worked, for example, 30 minutes. So, as an example, if a lake host showed up to work at 7 a.m., they got rained out by 7:45, that lake host would still be paid from 7 to 9 a.m., that 2 hour window. Um, Employees may only be paid for their time worked with the exception of this 2 hour rule. And New Hampshire Lakes recommends that you offer the opportunity to make up lost hours due to canceled shifts from inclement weather. Lake Host payroll is generally from May through October. We operate on a biweekly payroll schedule for over 300 seasonal employees. Assistants or coordinators must verify time cards by 4 p.m. the Monday following the end of the pay period. A list of these Mondays is provided in the training manual. I suggest Printing off a copy if helpful, taking a photo on your phone, setting calendar reminders in your personal calendars so that you are aware of when these Mondays are during the season and don't kind of lose track, which can be easy to do. For coordinators who are also paid lake hosts, time cards must be approved by someone else. Your time cards must be approved by somebody else on your local leadership team. Automated emails will be sent out in season, reminding you to approve and submit time cards to New Hampshire Lakes. You can read the payroll guidance in the manual very carefully. Um, I'll mention that last season, I did have to contact quite a few groups the mornings of the Tuesdays following payroll Mondays to let coordinators know that they have not yet reviewed their time entries. I'm really hopeful going into this season that all time entries on the regular are approved by 4 p.m. on payroll Mondays. Even if you have already reviewed all time entries, on Sunday. I encourage you to log in on Monday, just to make sure that lake hosts haven't, said, oh, I forgot to include, these hours and it's still showing as pending on our end, because I really want to avoid calling you at, 7:30 in the morning on a Tuesday. For reviewing time entries, and we are nearing the end of our training here. So the first step to reviewing time entries will be an email that you receive. You will receive an email titled Approve Lake Host Timesheets here every Monday and Friday. And I encourage you to approve timesheets weekly, just so that you can stay on top of it if that's how you operate. So what you're going to want to do when you receive this email is click on the hyperlink with your group's name. And when you click that hyperlink, you're going to be taken to a page that looks a lot like this, if not exactly this. So you'll have two options. Open site view of time entries or approve all current time entries. You are not going to want to, right off the bat, click on approve all current time entries. You are first going to want to click on this kind of peach colored first link to review each individual time entries to be sure that lake hosts are meeting the 2-hour rule if needed, if they needed to leave their site early due to bad weather. If you know that they had a canceled shift, but maybe they still, forgot that that shift was canceled and they entered in hours that weren't actually worked, you want to kind of make sure that your program isn't losing funds and review all of those individual time entries. Because we really have no way of knowing your program's schedule. We rely on coordinators' review of time. So in this view, so once you click on Open Site View of Time Entries, I first want to guide your eyes to this status column. So in this status column, you can see where each individual time entry is in its progress of being approved by you as a coordinator. So there are 4 status options. We see 2 of them listed here. The first status option is approved, and that's going to be a green color. Approved means that you have already reviewed and approved that time entry and requires no further action. Rejected will be a red color around the word rejected, and that indicates that a time entry requires edits from the lake host before qualifying for approval from you. So it means that you, and we'll go into how to reject a time entry in a minute here, means that you have rejected it and they have not yet reviewed that entry. The third status that you could see here is entry updated, which is that burnt orange color that you see. That indicates a previously rejected time entry was revised and resubmitted by a lake host, and pending review is probably what you'll see most often. It indicates that you have not taken any action yet on these time entries, and you need to go in and take a look, make sure everything is looking good. So to approve or review a time entry, you are going to want to click on Review Time. So when reviewing time, you want to review all of the key components above. So the Lake Host name, the name of the local group, make sure that that's your group, the date, the hours claimed. If it says 14 hours, you're going to want to send that back to the Lake Host and ask them to revise it. Or if they didn't work an 8-hour day, they only worked 4 hours, you can reject it. And the position. So if this person is solely hired as a lake host inspector, be sure that in every single time entry, the position is listed as lake host inspector. If everything looks tip-top shape, then you can approve this time entry. And you're going to do that by selecting, and hopefully you can see my mouse, by selecting approved under status and then pressing submit. If something needs updating, then you can select rejected as done here. Provide rejected reasons because these will be sent directly, automatically be sent directly to the lake host, and you can tell them what they need to fix. Once you have, done what you need to do, you can press submit. If everything looks great, you've looked at all the time entries, lake hosts had perfect payroll, or lake hosts have revised any, time entries that needed updating, then you can press approve all current time entries. When you press approve all current time entries, it will take you to a page that looks like this. You will want to will want to check mark the approve all pending time entries uh, button here and then press submit. Okay, our second to last slide, tracking volunteer time. So as a recap for volunteer time, ensure that all volunteers, including you, keep track of hours, mileage, and out-of-pocket expenses. The majority of coordinators here today should be recording this training time in their volunteer match sheet. This includes time spent on administration during the season, emailing and scheduling, those out-of-pocket expenses, lake host specialty items, and mileage driving to the ramp, all of that good stuff. This can also include any treasurer or leadership hours as well. So if you have your treasurer who is, throughout the season looking at those biweekly financial reports, ask that they keep track of how much time they have spent doing those activities. All right. We made it to the end. Thank you so much for tuning in to our pre-recorded coordinator training. If you have any questions now or in season, this is our contact link. Also, individual contact information is available on our webpage. Again, thank you for all of the work that you do. I know how much work goes into overseeing a lake host program. We appreciate you so much and have a great lake hosting season.